Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something so fundamental to our daily communication that we almost never stop to actually look at it. We're going to unpack a curated source list of 50 sentences to reveal how tiny, seemingly insignificant words, prepositions, act as the invisible architecture of our language. You can think of them as the hidden framework holding our ideas together. Honestly, without them, our sentences would just collapse into a pile of disconnected nouns and verbs. We would know where we are, when we are, or where we're going. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the blueprint of how we actually navigate the world through words. Here is the structural blueprint we'll be using today. First, pinpointing place. Next, tracking time, followed by mapping movement, and finally, other common connections. Section 1. Pinpointing place, grounding ourselves in the physical world. These are the words that orient our physical reality. Our source sentences tell us that the keys are on the kitchen counter and that the post office is next to the library. Think about it. Without on or next to, you aren't just missing a word. You are helplessly wandering around looking for your keys. These tiny anchors lock our reality right into a physical grid. Take a look at how the scale of space shifts dramatically here just by swapping out a single word. We start off with a super domestic, cozy scale, a small cat sleeping peacefully under the dining table. But then the perspective shifts outdoors to a hidden pathway between two tall hedges. And suddenly, the scale goes absolutely massive, a submarine diving deep below the surface of the ocean. Under, between, and below are doing all the heavy lifting here to set our exact spatial parameters. And to push that scale even further, check out this quote pulled straight from our source material. The airplane flew high over the snow-capped mountains. Just look at how a single relationship word paints this vivid microstory. It instantly elevates our perspective high above the peaks. It removes us from the ground entirely. Literally one word and our minds immediately grasp that vast, open altitude. Section 2. Tracking time, the chronological rhythm of language. Time can be a tricky thing to visualize, but notice the natural patterns we've got here. We alternate between exact, pinpointed moments on the clock and spanning durations. We start with a highly specific, maybe even slightly stressful point, a meeting scheduled to begin at 9 o'clock. Then we zoom out a bit to a conference on Monday, further out to beach trips in the summer, and finally span half a decade with someone living in London for 5 years. These words act like our temporal rulers, allowing us to measure out moments in seconds or stretch them across entire years. So the crucial takeaway here is that temporal prepositions aren't just for strict, rigid business schedules or measuring the length of a residency. As this sentence beautifully highlights, they dictate the boundaries of deeply human poetic experiences. They danced until the sun began to rise. The word until acts as a strict boundary line in time, sure, but it completely frames the romance and energy of the entire night. It gives the action a destination in time. Section 3. Mapping movement, injecting dynamic energy and direction. This setup brilliantly illustrates the contrast. First, we have a static place. She stood at the bus stop. She's rooted. She isn't going anywhere. But compare that to our movement phrase. The kids ran eagerly toward the ice cream truck. We go from simply standing still at a fixed point to aggressively and joyfully charging toward a sweet reward. The word toward is exactly what gives the running its actual target and momentum. Just watch the sheer visual momentum in these action phrases from our text. It honestly reads like a script for a high-energy movie sequence. Our subjects aren't just moving. They are being pushed and pulled by their prepositions. They walk across the narrow wooden bridge. They drive through the long tunnel. They hike up the steep mountain path, roll a heavy barrel down the grassy hill, and a dog chases a squirrel around the backyard. Across, through, up, down, around. These aren't just words, they are actual vectors of motion, mapping the trajectory of every physical action we take. Section 4. Other common connections, the abstract glue of sentences. He always drinks his coffee with a splash of milk. Now, here, the connection isn't about physical space, time, or movement at all. The word with tells us about association and accompaniment. It's an abstract pairing and a delicious morning ritual, created entirely by a tiny four-letter word. These abstract words actually forge incredibly powerful conceptual links across our lives. Created by a local artist, the word by establishes agency and authorship. Passionate about protecting the environment, Here, about links an internal emotion directly to an external cause. A lovely bouquet of flowers for her mother. The word for designates the beneficiary of an action. And finally, walked into the cold rain without an umbrella. The word without is fascinating, right? Because it establishes a relationship based entirely on absence. It frames this solitary walk into the rain by telling us exactly what the person didn't have. Which brings us to a final thought for this explainer. If prepositions truly are the invisible architecture of our sentences, how would your world look if you suddenly lost the ability to navigate them? Just imagine trying to communicate your day, your emotions, or your physical surroundings, but you can't use words like in, on, at, toward, with, or until. Without these tiny, totally underappreciated anchors, how could we possibly map our place in the world? So next time you speak, pay a little extra attention to the invisible architecture you're building. Thanks for exploring this blueprint with me today.